I was born in May Lane.
And May Lane.
May Lane
Do you know
in the West End.
Yeah. Do you
It
remember
wasn't.
the address?
I think it's still there.
Yeah.
May Lane, yeah.
Do you remember the address of your house?
Well, it was 636 May Lane, or some people called it Albert Street Rear.
Rear.
You know, there was like Albert Street, and then there were houses in between Albert and Cathcart.
Yeah.
And that's where I was born.
And I need your name. Your name.
Pardon? May Lane.
Your name. What was your name? Your maiden
My
name?
maiden name was Gassy.
Okay.
Who delivered you, Ma?
Pardon?
Who delivered you?
Who delivered me? Kumara Maranelna.
Hello?
You know Nicky Marinelli? You know Gary's friend Nicky?
Yeah, Nick.
Well, his grandmother delivered me.
Was a midwife.
She was a midwife. She delivered all of us.
And when was that? What was the birth?
It was in 1919.
1919.
Yeah.
Okay.
And do you know what day you were born? Was it the 8th or the 15th
No, I was born on the 8th
of October?
of October.
1919. Okay. Carol,
But as in those days, you know, the parents were not, you know, I was registered like a week later.
yeah.
Now, the government sends me mail. I'm born 1950, the 15th of October. They got the year right, but the date is wrong. I don't. But I leave it anyway. I'm not going to argue with the government.
No, it doesn't do you any good.
Yeah.
Carol, do you want to introduce yourself and your name and your relationship to this?
To Aurora Gassy.
Wow.
My name is Carol Hunt, and I was born Carol Butkovich from Tom Butkovich, who is deceased, and Aurora Mary Gassy. And being born of a Yugoslav father in Sault Ste. Marie and an Italian mother was nothing out of the ordinary, but makes for very colorful people, don't you agree?
Now, Aurora, your mom and dad, were they born in Sault Ste. Marie?
No, they were born in Italy, both of them, but they didn't know each other until they met in the factory in Utica, New York. And that's where they were married. And my brother, my oldest brother, and my oldest sister was born in Utica. And then the rest of us were born in the Sioux.
How many in your family?
And my oldest sister, who lives in California right now and has been for quite a while, she will be 99 in September. Yeah.
Why did they come to Sault Ste. Marie?
Why did they come? Because some friend of my dad's wrote and said that there was a lot of work in the Sioux, and the steel plant was operating, and the paper mill, and so my dad and the family came over to the Sioux. I said, couldn't you pick anything else? It's the end of the railroad. Anyway, that's how they got here, or why they came.
What was it like growing up in May Lane?
In May Lane, well, for a kid, it was a lot of fun, but we were poor, you know. But I used to go and follow the coal wagon, you know, that delivered the coal to the people. And I'd go behind the wagon and fill up my basket as the coal fell on the ground. Or wood, whatever they were carrying, so we'd have more warmth in the house. Yeah. It was lots of fun growing up. And boys and girls just played and fought just like there was no girls and boys. It was just fight for yourself.
Friends.
Yeah.
So what school did you go to?
I went to McFadden.
Was Mrs. McRae the principal of that
Miss
school?
McRae was the principal, and she was the most beautiful lady you ever want to meet. You ever want to meet? But she's gone now, and she was really, really good person.
Did-
I had bad tonsils when I was a kid, but my parents couldn't afford to have them out. So Miss McRae and Miss Goatby, the school nurse, they paid for it and had my tonsils removed. And then I didn't have anything removed till about 4 years ago.
She'd never been hospitalized till she was 88.
Isn't that amazing?
Since I had my tonsils out.
Right.
That's great. Now, how many were in your family? How many children?
Pardon?
How many children in your family?
How many children did I
How
have?
many siblings did you have? Brothers and sisters?
Oh, I had, there were 6 of us.
6?
Yeah, there was 6 of us. 3 girls and 3 boys.
Where'd you learn how to cook?
Pardon?
Where did you learn how to cook?
I learned how to cook by helping my mommy.
And what, Mother? What did you cook? Did Nono have rabbits?
Oh, no, we used to, my dad raised rabbits, eh? And we used to have a lot of rabbit stew. My mom would make a stew, like a sauce with rabbit. We'd have that over the pasta. It was very good.
Could he not find work?
Pardon?
Did Nono not have work?
Oh
to
yeah,
go
he
to?
worked. He worked until the Depression. You know, in 1929, 30, the steel plant and the paper mill were way down, and everybody got laid off. But in 1939, when the war started, you know, in Europe, well, then the steel plant started up again, because they needed steel, I guess, to make the bullets and the cannons and whatever. And so then everybody started working again. But by then, my dad was kind of getting old and didn't feel like working. So he sent me.
Well, there were a lot of women working in the plant.
Oh,
Jen.
yeah.
Tell us about that time.
I never went to work because I wanted to work in cooking and waiting on tables and so on. Yeah.
So where did you first work?
My first job, I worked at the International Cafe. I think I worked there the first job I had. And then Ramo Stangetta, you remember him? And then he bought that Vic's Lunch, which is now the West Side Cafe. Well, then I went to work for him. But I only worked there for about 3 years, and then I opened up a little place on James Street. And it was called Aurora's. And it's still called Aurora's. Yeah.
That was the first, was it pizza?
That was my first venture on the corner of James Street and Albert. And I was there for till 1956, and then I bought a pizza oven, and I moved to Bruce Street because I did open it up on the store where I was the little lunch counter, But the people from the East End were too afraid to come in the West End because, as you know, there was a lot of trouble, like the West End hated the East End and vice versa. So then I took my oven and I left and I went to Bruce Street in the middle of the town.
Mother,
Yes.
why don't you tell us something about the characters of the people that frequented the restaurant and all their nicknames? And why were they called these silly names?
Well, I don't know, all the names that they had, that was in the West End. Everybody had a nickname. I had 3 or 4 of them.
Like, do you remember All Pants?
Of course. All Pants Greco. He, he was always going around with his pants down to here, and the bum part would be hanging down, so they used to call him All Pants. And
So what's changed?
he still is the same way. I haven't seen him for a long time, but
And who was Dolly?
Dolly Sarlo, he used to run the pool room. His real name was Guido, but they called him Dolly because he was so little and cute. Yeah.
And how about the Greek?
Oh, I don't know how the Greek got his name. The Greek got his name because he was such a big gambler.
Oh, where did they
And
gamble
when I
in?
was on James Street, if I didn't take in enough money, I would go and shoot. I'd go and shoot crap with the boys and make some money and pay my staff.
Where did you go shoot craps at, Aurora?
Pardon?
Where did you go to shoot craps?
Where did I go and shoot crap?
Yeah.
I would go to Dolly's pool room. They'd let me in.
Because you were one of the guys.
No, I was one of the, when the West End was every 3 or 4 homes was bootleggers, and so when the cops had come down Albert Street, I'd call the boys up. The cops are around, and let them know I was a spy. I was a spy for the FBI. But later on, I was very, very nice to the police force. When I was on Bruce Street, they always helped me out, and they were always invited. As a matter of fact, one year they gave me a badge, a Sault Ste. Marie police badge, because I was one of their honored guests. And the boys, they all,
Watch your mic.
yeah.
Watch your mic.
What?
Watch your mic. The mic.
Yeah, oh, I see.
I can hear that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Did you hear me?
Oh, I heard you.
Oh,
I heard
yeah.
Oh, good. Okay.
So you had a great time in the,
I had
the West
a good time.
End.
Even though it was Depression time, while I went through all the depression, and went with my dad every week to the. I'd go on the. I'd get a ride with the little wagon, and then we'd load up at. They had a store on Wellington and Hudson where they gave out food. And so we'd go with and pick up, the butter and all stuff that they would give us. And besides that, I used to go, and my dad would go and pick dandelion, and my mom had cleaned them and everything, and I would go all around the neighborhood selling them at 25 cents a basket. And one day I sold 25 baskets of dandelion, and we ate for a month.
Where did
Pardon me?
What did they do with the dandelion?
Oh, did you ever have dandelion salad and smelts?
Yeah.
You've never had anything better. Yeah, we used to sell them like the dandelion when they're babies. You know, they're not grown into
Wild.
a flower. It's just like a chicoria, you know.
Okay.
And you make salad with it. It's delicious when they're baby dandelions. Yeah.
They're tender.
And oh yeah, and we say, you know, that's the way we made our extra quarters or a couple of dollars to buy meat to make meatballs or something like that. Because at City Hall, you only got butter, flour, bread, and nothing in fresh meat, you know. So, and then we'd go and pick blueberries in August or in the fall, and I'd sell those. And I was a seller, Kathy. I'm still selling. You want to buy my house?
When you were young, Ma,
When I was young, what do you think I am now?
well, just more mature.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
Did you really see a murder?
Did I? Yes, I did.
You saw a murder?
Yeah. We were kids playing. Well, I don't know if you know the story about Frank Venna and Frank Permali. You know, they had. Did you ever hear that story?
Never.
Sort of, yeah. But, anyways, this Frank Permali had a grudge against Venna because he had murdered his brother in the pool room, but it was like self-defense. And then he got trial, but he got let out because it was, on self-defense. And when he came out, the brother, Frank Permali, he was after this Frank Venna because he was mad that his brother was shot and this guy is free. So he was gunning for him, and us kids, there were 5 or 6 of us, we were playing. It was around 10, 11 o'clock, a summer night, and we were playing hitting the can. Yeah. You know that game?
Yeah.
Yeah. And all of a sudden we look up and there's shots going on at the corner, and he was shooting. He shot Frank Venna right there on James and Albert Street. And us kids, I just flew home. It was very scary.
I guess so.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you could go on and on with all the stories in the West End, all the,
And
all the, Sunday morning was like, most people used to go to church, but at the corner of James and Albert, the gang would all be there, and they wouldn't move, and people would be walking to go to church or across the street. And these guys, they just wouldn't move. And we used to call them bums. They won't move for nothing. It was quite a thing in the West End. And besides, the people like east of Gore Street, they were afraid to come to the West End, and vice versa, And the boys in the West End, like, if I went to a dance, we used to have big dances at the Verde Hall, and all over. And the boys used to come from the East End, but you could be damned that there was going to be a fight somewhere in the night because the Italian boys were always jealous if you danced one of the girls from the West End was dancing with a fellow from the East End for maybe more than one dance, you know. And it was the same thing when we all went to the Palm Gardens. I don't know if you ever remember that.
No, I
The Palm Gardens used to be up over, well, I think it was around where Foshes is now. And there used to be a dance hall up there and a bowling alley downstairs. Oh, and when the West End boys went up there, and then they were in East End territory. Eh? There was always a fight. It was interesting.
And what about even in your own family? Wasn't your father involved in a shooting?
Oh no, that was in Utica, New York, Carol. That happened when my mom and dad were first married. My dad was in a tavern, and two other fellows got into an argument, and the one guy pulled out a gun, and my dad went to protect his friend and got a bullet in the side. And my dad had an operation, like 60 years later or whatever, when he was in his 80s. He had an obstruction of the bowel, and they went in to, they operated on him, and that bullet was still there. And they left it. They left it there because they figured it hasn't done any damage, and that's the way it left it. Yeah. But that was way back. They weren't in the Sioux.
So how did he become?
Pardon?
How did he become a member of the Gospel Hall from being a Roman Catholic?
My dad was a Roman Catholic, and my mom, and they were married in a Roman Catholic church and had two children. I think that while they were still Roman Catholic. But then my dad got in with a group of guys that believed only in brotherhood. They were like more anarchists. And but then when he went to work at the steel plant, he met a chum of his that belonged to the Gospel Hall, and he talked him into going to church again. So then my dad, of course, my mother never changed her Roman Catholic religion. And so my dad wanted her to go with him to the Gospel Hall after he got going there for a long time. But she never would. And she stayed. She said, "You go, whether you like, I go to my own church." And that's the way it went. I was baptized and had my communion and confirmation all secretly from my dad. Because he didn't want her to go to the Catholic Church, and but she went anyway. And then he wouldn't allow the kids to be baptized in the Catholic Church, but that's how come we got my younger brother, and myself. We were both, baptized and confirmed and all that secretly. Yeah. It was very interesting growing up.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
Well, there are a lot of musical people in your family.
Oh, yeah.
How did that get going?
I don't know, my brother, my oldest brother, my dad gave him, he was the only boy at the time, and he sent him to take violin lessons. And he became, and it was in the downbeat a music magazine in the States. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Downbeat. And
Chicago.
he was, in 1940, he was voted the 10th best guitar player in the U.S. He was very, very talented, but he played the piano, the violin, and they used to have little theaters here, like the old, it used to be like a movie house, but then it became just where you would go and have a little concert or something. And he used to play, and he did all these tricks, playing the piano here and all over. He was really good. And then when he moved to Chicago when he was 16, him and another fellow, chum of his, and they went to Chicago, and he was he could have joined Tommy Dorsey and Jimmy Dorsey. They wanted him to go into the big band, but he wanted to be on his own.
And Uncle
But
Bruno?
then he was, I think he was only 40 years old when the war, Second World War, ended. They wanted people to go and replace, they didn't have enough help, they needed workers. So he went to work for the elevated train in Chicago. And the first few months he was there, he was like the back conductor and get out and say all aboard and all that. And it was winter time, and he slipped and fell and went through the railing, and he hit the third rail, which electrocuted him. And he was only 40 years old. Yeah.
And
So
Nona,
that's what happened to him.
Nona spent the rest of her life in black.
Oh yeah, she was in black for a long time. That was the mode those days, eh? Everybody, if somebody passed away and of your relatives, you wore black to make it a little more gloomy.
Yeah.
And Uncle Bruno,
What about him?
he took sax.
Huh?
He took sax lessons.
He took sax?
Yeah.
Yeah, but he didn't do anything much about it. Eugene knows how to play much, much better.
Oh, yeah.
Uncle Ramo was...
Uncle Ramo did.
My brother Ray used to... he played bass. I think he was one of the best bass players in the Sioux. You must know Ray. Ray Gass? I used to call him Ray Gass and his brass ass. He was a nice guy. Yeah. That was my family, and then there was Jackie and me and Annie, who was in California. That's the one that's going to be 99 pretty soon. Yeah.
What's your favorite memory when you think back when you were a kid? What's your
My favorite memory?
Yeah.
Well, I was quite a rebel. I don't know if I have a favorite memory. I had lots of memories, but I kind of like them all.
Good.
No, I don't know. My favorite memory was when I first made gnocchi, and they didn't turn out, and I was living at my mother-in-law's upstairs in the attic, and I didn't want them to know that my gnocchis didn't turn out. So I opened the attic window and I threw them all out in the backyard. It was winter anyway. I loved it. got to say Wendy.
No,
What
not.
was it like growing up being the daughter of Aurora?
Pardon me?
Oh, that was.
Asking Carol.
What'd you say?
The question is, what was it like growing up the daughter of Aurora?
Oh, yeah. Ask Carol.
She did.
I know, but I didn't hear your answer, Carol.
Well,
it was fun. You know, I like, excuse me, it was fun. For me, it was a lot of hard work going into the pizza business because I was, you know, first one to put up a business of it. And there were no cardboard boxes like you have now. I had no Hobart dough machine, you know, like now they have all the things to go along with but this product. But at that time, there was just nothing. I used to go and in the back of the furniture stores, and where, you know, maybe couches came in and they'd in big boxes, and I'd go there and cut the cardboard out and put them in my car and go to the restaurant, cut them up in pieces to fit the pizza, eh? And then we'd put wax paper on top of that just to make it cleaner, and put the pizza on top. And I made my dough by hand, you know, for the first 10 years until they came out with these Hobart machines that are more for a place like that. And I just, everything was, you had to work hard to get by. Like now you can order boxes and dough machines, pasta machines, you name it, they got it going. But then there was nothing. And it was a lot of work, especially in the wintertime, you know, in the cold. When you had to, I got Dome Tire in Toronto to make me up sheets of cardboard. They wouldn't make boxes, but they made sheets, big sheets, and then they'd deliver them, and we'd cut them up into the pieces that we wanted, eh? Yeah, it was very hard, a lot of hard work getting by in the pizza business. But it was lots of fun, too. Yeah, I didn't mind. Then there was Carol and Bucky, and they wouldn't help me.
Do you want to answer the question, Carol?
Well, just simply to say, of course, growing up with such an ambitious dynamo as little Aurora, it had its challenges, but ultimately, what a history, what a great melding of cultures. And I think it's made for a generation of some pretty interesting people. And I'm sure growing up, I was very self-conscious that we didn't come from the East End and all those prejudices that were very much alive in her day, that they tried to impose on us, but through education and more of a melting down, it all came around, and I figure we really came from good stock. I'm very proud to have come from where I do. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Did you want to know about Doreen flying through my restaurant? you
Is that
remember,
Italian history?
You remember Doreen Butkovich? Doreen and Sammy.
Tell her who
like,
Doreen was. Doreen
yeah,
Peters.
well, I will. Yeah,
Okay.
she was a Peters girl. But
Gladys Peters.
she owned the confectionery store across from the restaurant on Bruce She was the one that actually said to me, Aurora, why don't you buy that little building there? It used to be like a meat market, but it was an old kind of building, and there was nothing in there at the time. So I said, that's a good idea. So I inquired about it, and I eventually bought the little building and fixed it up into a restaurant. But Doreen and Sammy, who was Tommy's brother, and she was married to Sammy. She was my sister-in-law. Now, one night, she was coming home. This was about 10, 15 years after I'd been there. And she was parking in her spot right by her confectionery store. And there was a telephone booth with a young boy in it. He was 16 years old. And she had been visiting and maybe had a beer or two, I don't know for sure, but there was also a little discrepancy there because she had her car in the garage that day, and something about the like I don't know, the mounds or something on the were not just right.
The brakes?
And she parked, and she went to, this is about 1 o'clock in the morning, and she went to put the brake on. Instead, she hit the gas pedal, and the car went flying, took the phone booth, and ripped right across the street and right into the front of the building, right in. The girls called me up and said, I was at home. And the girls, Kate, called me up and says, Aurora, you better come down here. I said, what's the matter? And she said, well, Doreen came right through the building with her car. I said, well, where's Doreen? How is she? She's asleep in the car. Well, she kind of knocked out a little bit, I guess. I don't know. And
the kid in the booth?
And the kid in the booth, well, we always made a joke of it. He said he was talking to his girlfriend, and he was asking her, she asked him, where was he? And he said, I'm in a phone booth by Doreen's confectionery, and all of a sudden he's in Aurora's restaurant. And he said, no, I said, I'm in the restaurant now, I'm ordering pizza. That was just a joke. But anyways, yeah, that was Doreen came right through the restaurant. And one of the girls that worked for me, her name was Wanda, I forget her last name. And she is now the manager of the Bank of Nova Scotia. Really? And when I had my surgery a couple months ago there, I get into the, they wheeled me into the operating room, and there's this young gal, I figured was young. I don't know, she had a mask and everything. She was assisting the doctor in the surgery. And she's telling me, are you Aurora? And I said, yes, I am. And she says, my mom used to work for you. And she worked for you when Doreen came through the restaurant. I said, what? And she said, yeah. She says, at that time, my mom and dad, had been going together, but they had split up. And she said, when she got, I think some piece of the furniture flew and hit her in the back. And she said, when she got hurt at the restaurant from that accident, she said she called my dad up to see what she could do, and she said they made up. And she says, and here I am. That was kind of funny for me because I was going through it. Holy jeez. Anyway, it was very nice of her. She made me laugh. And then the doctor put that hose in me and bye.
And you're here to tell the story, which is wonderful.
Yeah, right. Very good. Okay.